I think it's like a combination of finding an easier way, like understanding the pain points, understanding the solution, not jumping onto the solution, understanding the problem first, and then going out and testing it rigorously against against the actual users.
Hello, I'm Dr. Chris Parker and welcome back to the UX Usability Podcast. It's been a short break here. I've been away. I've been presenting at the 7th International XR Conference in Lisbon, which was a stunning event that anyone into AR, VR, wearables or the XR umbrella, just check it out. It's incredible. Next year, I hope to see you there. And hello to everyone which I met at the conference that I know you're listening. And I've been planning conferences for Spain, the Design Research Conference 2022 in Bilbao coming up, where I'm holding a workshop on AI coming up in a few weeks' time. This is really exciting work. And sometimes you got to take a break, you got to step back from things which you love just to focus on things which are important. But then sometimes you come back to things that really mean something. And that's what we're talking about today. Our topic today is something which is going to resonate with pretty much everyone listening at some deep level. Some of you will be doing this now, and some of you are going to be doing this later, maybe as soon as October this year. So let's get into it. My guest tonight is Gaurav Sharma, who is a master's student at Loughborough University studying user experience design. But that's not the story, because when I caught up with him, he was thinking about the course he's about to start. He'd been accepted. It was just a few weeks from starting the course, and we had a conversation about life, about aspirations, working in UX, international travel, and where the future can take you. So these are themes that we all feel at the moment, and education in UX is so critical. Now, yeah, sure, I am program leader for MSc UX design, and I can sing lyrically for hours about how great the course is, but that's not what we're here for. Education is important for all of us. I mean, taking a short course, taking a long course, doing anything, reading a book, listening to a podcast, that is all part of upskilling and taking our careers further. And I hope that this can help you get some ideas of where your future can go, about where your aspirations are and where you see yourself in this world we're in. So without further delay, let's get into it.
So I'll start with the journey leading up to me joining as a UX designer at The Economist. So I graduated as an engineer, computer science engineer, back in 2017. And during my like final years of the college, I was like into design. I volunteered myself to learn Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop and everything, so I can design certificates and everything, during any college events and everything. So I volunteered into that, and then start getting a little bit of feedback from the seniors and some of the teachers in the university. So like I think I remember one teacher, like she was into creative art and stuff, so she suggested, like, why don't you just explore this field of UI and UX design? It is something you seems to have a better understanding of how the color and everything works against in different backgrounds and everything. So yeah, she suggested that. I went home, did a little bit of reading, went through some of the, like Googled a simple term like a UI designer or UX designer and everything. So then it started, hitting me that most of the things which I was already doing is something which is, actually a professional field. I can actually make a career out of it. And I was doing just as a hobby because I was not into too much deep into coding and everything, because our Our computer science course is predominantly based on having a lot of little bit of coding here and there, and not having in-depth sort of like no one expect you to be a super expert in like coding and everything, but a little bit of coding everywhere. So I was like, changing languages over and over. Like every semester, the language changes, and I'm learning a bit of everything. So was not into it that much. But yeah, so that was like the initial learning. Like, so I like by the time I was graduating, I decided I want to be a UI UX designer. And fortunately, there was just one company. So in India, we back have that we have like campus placements. So the final year students can, the university calls some of the companies to hire a bunch of people, and like for any open position, and everything is done on campus. So only just one company actually came in for that. And by the time I just had like a week, and some of my old posters were like in the portfolio, and none of them was like an app design or something like that. It was all basic graphic design stuff. But I had like a basic understanding of how the color theory or everything works.
Is
Like
that
how
normal for in India to have more focus on graphic design skills for UX jobs?
uh to an extent, like I started off as a hybrid. I started off as a UI designer and then transitioned into a UX designer. So it was mostly visual design work initially. So it was, I think it was based on the work I presented during my interview. They were hiring for a more of like a designer, just a simple designer role, with no prefix of like UX or UI. And yeah, so I think I presented most of my posters, and and during our conversation, it we came around and touched a little bit of how user experience work. I was not familiar with the terms like empathy mapping or journey mapping, or I was just aware of wireframing at a very basic level, just because I read it through blogs and stuff, but nothing too detailed or anything like that. So I think I was offered that job. But to answer your question, I think in most of the service-based companies in India do hire a person with a more of a hybrid sort of a role, and some even hire people who have front-end experience as well. So more of like a full stack designer, if I may. So a UI design, a little bit of UX design, and a little bit of HTML, CSS, and JS coding.
Yeah, and you seem to have done pretty well because you went on to become user experience designer at the Economist intelligence unit, and you're also senior UX designer at Aikido TV.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
something must have gone right between not really knowing this UX skill and working as a senior.
Yeah, so it has been hell of a journey. So the first company which I actually joined in, the one I was talking about when I got the campus placement for, I worked there for 3.5 years, and it was like a service-based company. So I was working like 5 to 6 projects in a day, sometimes. So it was like a lot of work. In some places you're just doing UI work, in some places you're just doing user experience work. In some places you're doing both, even delegating to the client and the shareholder that this is what the design is, this is how we are working, and this is what we have created, we need your feedback. So yeah, so a bunch of stuff in the past, like initial 3 years, it was a hustle, well, like moving from one project to another, managing time and everything, transitioning from like a college, just a fresher out of a college, to a proper professional job. So juggling a lot of stuff in the beginning, and then the pandemic hit, and I that was like the time. So I know COVID has been like very tough on people lately, and it has been devastating in the world. But that was like the time which I actually got to myself with, like I sat at home because it was mostly work from home, so I got a lot of time with me. I do not have to travel to the office, which was like 2 hours away. So I was not wasting a lot of time in traveling and everything. So I sat down with my, I went through a lot of blogs and everything. So I was like, let's just switch into a more user-centric role. Now I have like enough experience with me to to switch from a hybrid sort of role to more into user experience kind of role. Like I've seen like the both worlds in the past 3 years, so it is easier for me to pick and choose like what I want to do for the next foreseeable future. So I sat and created like a very small portfolio, a design. Like I was working with client. It was like one of the so mostly I work with enterprise projects, PwC. I have worked with Mobilium, like some of the big corporations. They already have like systems built in, creating large dashboards, data centric dashboards, and everything, data crunching stuff. And so one of the like few of the projects which I really loved was they were healthcare centric. So it was like a weight loss application app they wanted to design. It was a client based in USA, and I created an app for that. And after seeing like initial, they were very reluctant about design. They were like, we just want this color, blue, red, and everything. So they were like have a very strict mindset about design, and they were like just get it done, make it as native as possible. But I was like, no, let's just take a step back. Let's just ask the right questions, and a basic thing of UX design. So I delegated myself into creating something which was more than they asked for, and they loved the initial mock-ups and everything. So they gave the whole UX and the UI part to me, and yeah, so that was like the first initial step I took towards delegating and getting into the core UX part of stuff. And then that app got live and everything, and I created a small case study out of it. So yeah, so that case study ended up helping me get the job at Economist. uh, and yeah, so the rest is history, and
Okay.
went through some of the interviews and everything. Got
So it's quite a sort of education building journey until getting to The Economist. Now, can you tell us a bit more about what kind of work you did at The Economist and maybe what you're proud of that you achieved?
Yeah, definitely. So I wished I had like a longer opportunity to work with Economist. It was more of like a contractual sort of a job, and I already planned to do my master's, so I had to move out of that job after an year. But yeah, so we so they were like the first thing which actually was different from the previous organization I was working with is that they are super user experience centric. And I think I remember in just like 1 month, the initial 1 month, we were just like nowhere close to the design. So the problem statement was that there's like a portal. They have a data tool, like a simple, not simple. It's a complex tool wherein the economist, the person who actually creates, the reports and everything, they crunch in data by looking at historical data. Like if I want to see China's GDP growth in comparison to Nigeria's GDP growth, or the world GDP growth against the China's GDP growth. Of like this is like a very simple example I'm sticking out here, but they wanted to see like comparison different data sets from across the world, and they want to see it in a one go and one set so that they can use that in their study. So that was like the challenge we had, like what how to create a more comprehensive system for the economist, the people who are working behind. And that was like the whole data crunching part, and they had like a different news and everything, the daily the changing geopolitical scenarios in the world. So that was like separate. So we were just focusing on the data set, how the technical works, and how we can grab on, like how we can actually use how can we leverage the amount of data we have, because economist is they have a lot of amount of historical data, even before 1800s. I think some of the data is like super old, and making comparisons from that to the latest to like the 21st century is like a hell lot of work for a person to do. And so I was primarily working on that with three different designers as well. So we were three UX designers and sorry, two UX designer, one UI designer, and one user researcher. So there was like the set of four people. And so I started off working on the graph initially. So looking at different data visualization type of ways, talking to some of the economists, like looking at the existing system, what all problems they are facing, asking the questions uh, like what different would you like to see. It was like taking a lot of interviews one after another, and then drawing out some of the conclusions, then A/B testing some of the initial designs, just creating a very fast mock-up, sitting with the developer. Let's just pick one, like just pull out some graph from the internet and just display some mock data over here and do A/B testing with some of the clients which were already using that design. It was using that portal for the Economist, and then like refining it iteratively. And the initial we were creating MMP initially, so a minimum marketable product. We were creating that so that as an economist they can wholesale that new product as a part of the viewpoint. They were rebranding the whole system altogether, which was like done 15 years ago. It was a massive move for them.
So this sounds a lot like your initial way you started in computer science, data analysis. Where does the human side come into this?
So as I said, so we started off with we at Economist. We always, like when I joined, we were already doing some initial mockups and doing a series of user tests, user interviews, and getting some of the initial feedbacks from the actual users. So they already had clients set up, the people who had already bought a subscription from the Economist for that data tool, and people who were using that data tool for ages, and sitting with them, and some of the economists who were actually working with the economist. So it was easier to approach them and ask like how would you like to see this data, what all problems are you facing in the past years using this model. Can you just walk us through like what is like a day-to-day task in your life, in any project you're working on? How do you go about doing this task and everything? So really getting into their day-to-day habits of how they actually use the system. Is there any problem which they even don't realize, or don't actually come out consciously, and they got used to around certain things. So yeah, getting like talking and really building out a solution, not just because this looks it's not like a dribble shot just to make it beautiful. We actually wanted to make it functional. So we dedicated a lot of time with iterating and working with the economist, and yeah, so iterating it on the way to the certain point that we actually landed up on a minimum product we can actually market. So yeah, so that was like the human-centered part of it, things.
Okay, that sounds like a very familiar part of the UX design process, where 90% of your time is basically that last stage of we know what we're doing, we know where we're going, we're just iterating on this. Now, you could easily continue on this path because you're in India and there's huge industries. Don't talk about how big the market is for any native, get international. And you'd gone on, you got a senior job at Exendo TV, which we'll come back to in a bit. You've had a very large decision to make and a very large change in your life where you've come back to study. Now, you could just carry on and forge the UX career in the way that you're going. Why did you decide to make this change?
One of the initial reasons for me to make a change was that when I transitioned from the previous organization, the one I was working with before Economist, uh, most of the client I handled with, most of the people I worked with, most of them do not understand what user is. They think designing is something like it's like pressing the big red button, you press it, and like things are done and it's shipped to the developer and he just have to code. Having that level of depth and knowledge that this is what we have done, this is what the users want, and this is what the pattern has been for your, and this is where the connections are breaking. People are losing, like you are losing a lot of business if they mostly understand the language of business. That you're losing a lot of money in this process and everything, and being able to process and iterate that is something which I felt like I'm lacking in. I was not being able to, convince them to the point that, this is the right way. This is how, the data sets have been matched. This is how the people liked your website, and you should not go in direction just because you have like a 15-year-old built-in design system. You just have to follow that. No, so he can actually make change, and this is the impact it will create. So being able to have that level of knowledge, and I somewhat thought that I lack in a sense that if I have that level of skill, particularly in user experience, because all I've like done is self-taught in most of the time, and it is like read something, then immediately try to implement it. It can be a hit or miss. It's like throwing arrows in the dark. You sometimes create a good solution out of it. You sometimes create a bad solution out of it, and end up losing a lot of time in the process. And so yeah, being able to have that simple process in my head, like having equipping myself with the knowledge and everything, so that I can move in a certain way and being more efficient, which also helps the client and the business, and also help me grow as a designer.
So lots of people would say that definitely in the UK that you can work in a job and just by working around and working on projects you can gain these experiences. Maybe not as fast over a year, but you could do it. Do you feel that that is also true in India?
Yeah, so I think yeah, that is like one of the questions which I asked myself when I made the decision, and I had take the red pill or to take the blue pill, to like go learn and understand UX design in a very academic way, and ascertain myself that I just like this is what I want to learn and be in the next 10 years, and just keep on following my hunches, learning from different designers, learning from books, blogs, learning through experiences. But at the end of the day, I have been working as like it has been like more than 4.5 years working as a UX designer, UA and a UX designer, and I believe that in a certain at a certain level you tend to get lost. You hit like a plateau, I'd say. You don't know where to go. You tend to reach out, and sort of like it feels like you limit yourself. There's like a personal feeling. It can work for someone. People have actually not have a very much formal education. Most of the UX designers who are working at at pretty big level don't have like the top notch level of education. Like they've not read academically UX design. So for me, I think it was more of like let's just understand what we are doing, and not just throw arrows in the dark every time. You're not reinventing the wheel every time, sitting down reading a blog, or trying to create an empathy map, and trying to convince the client that you need an empathy map and not the exact visual designs in the first go. It just helps. It just a certain level of confidence within me and my skills that like this is what I've seen in the real world, and this is like I've studied in the real world. So where these two can meet. So like this is like sort of like a goal.
Yeah, that's quite a nice goal to have. Now, do you think there's a difference between, like you said before, there's like academic understanding of design and there's what people do out there. Do you feel there's a difference between the two?
Well, I hope not, because I like not uh, not started studying yet. But I do feel that if you have like a during my course, I hope I learn stuff which are like resided in my back of the mind whenever I'm working on a real life project. These things come in an instant. I don't have to go back and read something, or make myself revise, or there are like less chances of failure. uh, and not saying that failure is bad. I mean, I've learned that failing fast is very necessary, but failing in a very bad position is can lose you a lot of time and a lot of precious efforts. So I believe that it just helps having like an academic background with this. It helps. I am fortunate enough to work with some of the designers who have actually studied design, not particularly UX design, but studied design. So I can like feel and like work with them. So I can understand that where they're coming from. Their logics are pretty much based out of a solid foundation, instead of just me saying that I read this somewhere that this is like a best practice to do, instead of that. So
Yeah, definitely. From my side view, I've been doing design at university for a long, long time now. It's quite scary. I feel that the mindset is the most important part. A tool can change, though. I would not particularly be using Figma 5 years ago, and here we are using Figma.
yeah,
But yeah, the mindset stays. But this is obviously it's all a very big journey. What do you feel your greatest challenges are?
I think challenges will be more circumstantial. I mean, as you go along, you face different challenges, and especially in design, yeah, I have like there's no cookie cutter way of tackling a problem, and those things just like keep on changing. Uh, it is about, I think it is like user experience is like so, and it's design is something which when person thinks it's more creative, it's more art centric, it's more about colors, and it's all about that right brain firing up. It's I think and it is yet so closely related to technology, which is changing so rapidly in the coming years, and it has been in the past. So I think one of the few challenges is that as the new interfaces, people are not restricted to mobile and laptop screens and tablet screens. It is becoming more immersive in everything, and a lot of different technologies is changing so rapidly. I think so design will evolve with this, and like that can be a challenge if you don't update yourself. I want to keep myself updated to the latest level of the let's just say AR, VR, or something like that. So a different level of visual interfaces and people. More importantly, how people are interacting with those technologies, and how they are making use out of it. So I think that is like one of the challenges. uh, Other challenges I could think of is um, not being into the a set of boxes. I mean, people's behavior change. A lot of heuristic principles have been written 40-50 years ago, and they have been working pretty well so far as a foundation. But in the future, I'll just say next 20-30 years, the devices and the interfaces will like completely change. People's behavior will change. People, the way they use and perceive technology, or simple stuff will change in a fundamental way. So I think, will they be relevant? So my whole 4 year journey and my master's in UX design will be relevant in the next 20 years is something which could be a viable challenge.
That's a really interesting point about the viable challenge being, are these tools interesting? Because go back to the very first podcast episode, which I've kept online to keep me humble. I'd invite you to go back and listen to it. Episode 1, it's terrible. Like you always learn, you always improve. And, we started out not knowing what sound quality was or compression properly with the audio editing. So you'll hear a lot of crazy breath, like... Anyway, but the very first topic we talked about, I was talking to Dr. Martin McGuire, who really pioneered some of the research into what is like usability, like you're talking about, as one of your goals. And we're saying, well, these tools for heuristics, Jacob Nielsen and Don Norman developed back, what was that, 30 odd years ago.
Yeah.
Now, do they apply to the modern world of AI? And we're saying we couldn't say they 100% did apply, but we couldn't think of any reason why they wouldn't apply. And then we're trying to think in the future, like, well, what could come next? That some kind of mind control system, we can have read brain waves and, okay, what mind control thing, how are these heuristics not applied to that? And we just couldn't think of an answer. So there's definitely some things where we can't see beyond the horizon, potentially going to be around for a long time. Other things are obviously going to change. Well, those are the challenges you're going to face.
Yeah.
Is there anything you're scared of?
I think getting obsolete in a way that, because design is something, at one point you just feel like you can fly. It's so creative, it's so artistic in the nature that you can create anything out of, just open up Figma, just start creating something out of it, just without any goal or something like that. It just feels natural, it just feels amazing. And on the flip side, I think it is more about, as I said, like I'm repeating myself, but being relevant to the people, being relevant to the technology they have. I mean, like one of the good examples of that is Google Lens. Google Lens became obsolete, and it just was a brilliant idea. I mean, you can record. I mean, like even as a normal person, you can feel like, I wish I had the camera at that moment when the bird flew that close to the sun. It just felt like an aeroplane or something like that. It just, you want to have that technology at that moment, but that didn't work. That was, could be a viable solution to that problem, or an itch. But that didn't work. Maybe it was too early. Maybe it gets Google us to in the next 10 years. People might understand it, and it could be the next big thing. And so yeah, be it too early or too late, you become obsolete. And that is like, I always keep on asking myself, am I too late? Am I too early? And yeah, not to become obsolete is like, one of the big fears I have.
So if becoming obsolete is a fear, what would the dream feeling be? How would you like to feel?
I would like to feel, I think, being able to see the real impact in people's life. Like as a day-to-day people, if like at least one people come to me back and say like, your product or your website or an application just had saved my life, or has helped me enormously, or something like that. And it is that feeling of being able to impact one person's life by just making some good decisions along the way, refining the product, resisting the deadline. It just make all worth it. Is like, that feeling is something you need to chase. I had that feeling just very few times in my life while working on some of the products. Yeah, so I think, yeah, so that is like one of the best feelings.
Mm. And now, like, keeping the idea about like what feelings are hopefully best feelings, but who knows? So you've just come back to university, as we were talking about earlier, and you're with some students who've been just all the way through university. When you've gone to a job, got some students who are from the UK, and obviously you've travelled internationally to the UK from India, and you're all in this mix where we've been locked up in our house for the last year and a half or so. How does it feel?
Definitely been an experience. This is the first time I've actually traveled outside, like outside my home country to study or apart from traveling, and it has been amazing. I mean, even in the IBM workshop, we were a team of five, and we two were like from MSc UX design, one two from MA UX design, and one was a graduate who was a industrial design graduate that time. So it was just really amazing to see how they propose different ideas and different solutions. And I wish I had that opportunity to study product design when I was their age, and would have been, who knows, would have been such an amazing experience. So yeah, I think being in a mix of people, talking to a lot of different people. I think I've talked to two different graduates, undergraduates, product design and one industrial design, and I think that ideas of having coming from a job and background and coming from straight from the college freshers and straight from the school is like it's an interesting mix, and a lot of new ideas come in. I think design is like one of the few industries which age or degree or job or experience doesn't restrict you to create something good out of it, and that is like the best part of it.
Mm. So why do you think that age or qualification doesn't restrict you in creating these wonderful things when you started off earlier saying that you wanted to be able to create these things, so you wanted a degree?
Well, I mean, once you actually put yourself in that position, when you're in a bunch of your company influences your whole idea. So back in India, when I was doing engineering, I was not aware of like what all different fields are was and how different fields work, and is there any like design is even like one of my things which I really love. So being in that mix of people, of like-minded people, is what actually changes the way you think. And I wished like now I can connect the dots back and go like I wish I would have done for product design as a undergraduate, but uh, might have been not like I might have been not here, or it could have been a different journey altogether with me. So yeah, and I think if you are like a little bit of have that level of logic, uh, and I've seen some developers actually giving great design advice even. So it's all about how influence like how your brain works and how that circumstantially you are a little bit of creative, little bit of going against the rules, against the conventions. I think that helps.
Mm. It's going from a computer science technical background, moving into this sort of softer visualizing world, keeping your hand in data analysis, keeping your hand in use testing and making things work for people and wanting to feel that people are appreciating and loving your work. What mindset do you have?
Um, I just think in a very like in the past, like when I was doing computer science, it was all about logics. I did find that I had a good visualization. I always used to create random flowcharts of codes so that I can understand for myself better. And those now changed into journey maps, empathy maps, and it just works in a simple way that people use some sort of common sense or logic behind their intentions, and they move in a certain way. So I think the easier the better for the user. If you can make something, something easier for a user, just to, being able to help them to achieve or go from one task to another, or achieve one task in a simple and less painful way, it is the best. I think that is like the, like a common sense design mindset.
Mm. So, what do you think is the mindset that makes a powerful UX designer?
That is interesting. I think it's like a combination of finding an easier way, like understanding the pain points, understanding the solution, not jumping onto like the solution, understanding the problem first, and then, going out and testing it rigorously against, against the actual users, and then creating a viable solution which works, uh, which is like harder to fail into. Like, uh, if I'm making sense or not, it's just making something which is much effortless for a user and solves his problem, her problem in a very seamless way. I think that is like the one of the most fundamental things which is required, being able to solve users' problem. Uh,
Mm. So I'm trying to remember a quote, and it's on the tip of my mind, and I really wish I could remember what it is. I'm going to edit this part out whilst I search Google for this, because I really want to come onto this. I love being able to edit my life. It's a real useful tool. I wish I had. Okay, so I tried to miss. Okay, so I tried to remember this thing, and like most things in my mind, don't know about your mind, but I get false memories constantly. Like you have a vivid memory of something, and you get there and go, that's different. The quote which I was looking for is, "The mystery of love is greater than the mystery of death," and that's not the quote I remember. So what I thought it said was something about science can explain the actions of love, but it can't explain what love feels like, or the feeling of love. Something like that. Way more poetic than I just explained. How I got from that misremembered quote to that is super tangential. Never mind. But you're talking a lot about process, and that this rigorous thing. I'm sure most people listening will know, like Stephen Krug, Don't Make Me Think, and these very mechanical ways. If you do A and B, you'll achieve C. At the same time, you get the items, things like art, where you can look at a stunning painting. And for me, a stunning painting is, if you've ever been to New York, there in the Met, they've got Monet. And I've grown up seeing Monet paintings, never really cared that much for them until you see there in the room. You look at it and go, oh, that's Monet. Oh, it's a bit weird. So you walk out of that room, turn around, and you see it from a distance. And there's something the way the light plays on the paint. It looks like magic. It almost looks like you're looking at reality. Distance and blur and light, it is super. It really touched the heart, and you can get up close and you can look. Okay, that's a technique using the brush, right? That's the colours. We can analyze this, but I've never seen a painting that does that, apart from Monet. I certainly cannot explain that. Maybe somebody can, but to me, you're outside of the mechanical world and you're into something very expressive. That is, I'm not sure we have the words to describe why these things come together to produce those emotions. So that's the soft side. So would you say that the procedural issues that you discussed, the flowcharts, the empathy maps, the user testing, that process is different from that artistic world of creating emotion? Or is it a different skill set? Or how, take this and run with it.
Oh, yeah. Never actually, thought about this, like, mixing of emotions with the actual intricacies of UX design. But yeah, it's an interesting take. I think they do. It's like a symphony. When you know, certain applications or web applications do feel like symphony in a way that uh, you used to do certain things in a very painstaking way and had to do it because you had to do it. But certain things flows in this and in a different application or different a different world. It just feels painless and it just flows, I'd say. And that is like one of the most interesting part, how how the logic and the emotions flow from one thing to another. And yeah, I mean, that is, like I've seen, I used to use an application called Cred. It's famous in India. uh, just became a unicorn startup last year. And they implemented the new morphic design throughout the application. That was like one of the first few applications which actually did the whole dark themed new morphic design. And while describing this application, could you actually imagine that this is like a banking application? You can pay your credit card bills, you can pay off your bills and everything, and it doesn't look like a very cookie cutter banking application like any other would do. It just breaks that mold of having uh, you know uh, having that sense of a theme related to financial applications, green, blue, of something of that sort, and breaks that mold into something extraordinarily very different. And just create something amazing out of it. And just the user experience is amazing. They have actually created the whole user experience in a very detailed way. They have blogs all over the internet, and it has been like very famous, has been one of the most preached app in the design space as well, back in India. And yeah, so I think so coming back to that, once the if you look at the people's life, how they go from one task to another, and just draw their journey and day to day, and match those with their behaviors, or match those with their emotions, what they're going through. I think that is something which brings out the something different in the end. And uh, yeah, I think user experience is more about emotions and the actual behavior and problems, and the technical side as well, problem solving, using user interviews and testing and everything. Apart from that, emotions and how the people behave is something which actually creates a different product altogether.
Okay, so creating different kind of products. And you mentioned symphonies before. What inspires you?
uh Being in a, like, it is really hard to explain that, but uh, being in that zone of time, like being in a zone and being able to uh, have that level of creative freedom, because uh, I started off as a like a UX designer in a service-based company where things are like faster. The clients are mostly startups that don't have like a huge budget. They don't give you much of the creative freedom. they already have things in place. They have that predominant mindset that this is like the color of the application should be. I want to have my face on the splash screen as the application opens. It happened a lot of times, uh, and that just those things just take away the emotions and the behavior out of me. So how would I inject those behaviors and emotions into the application so that the user can actually feel that? So by symphony, I actually meant that being able to have that level of autonomy while I'm creating the flow or the experience out of it, and that just it's something different about that thing. Hard to explain in words. I don't know if you want to edit this part out, but yeah, it's hard to explain in words. It's more of a feeling based into like, if I'm not feeling the way I am while I'm while I'm creating something, then it is harder for me to expect the emotions out of the user when he will be using it.
So I should probably disclose at this point that I'm the program leader of your MSc in UX design. So a lot of what you're studying and what you're going, I'm hoping to achieve these goals. That's what I've been working on for the last 2 years or so, developing this new program. So we can have a talk afterwards about what we're doing, how we are meeting. I'm confident we're going to meet your expectations and exceed and challenge you to have these different views. But it's really interesting to hear your journey, and I'm sure lots of people listening will have a very similar idea that they've worked in industry and think about going back for masters, bringing very similar ideas to you. So maybe we'll get you back next year and have part 2 and go, well, was that good? And how has your mind changed? So I want to finish on this note, which I always love to finish on because it's always great to have something positive to smile at the end. I'd like to know, what do you think would make the world a better place?
I think love. I mean, it has been really hard in the past 1.5, 2 years, has been really brutal on a lot of people. I think love, empathy, and a little bit of sympathy, and yeah, a whole lot of love, and will actually, the combination of these things will make people happy, make yourself happy. I think that will make a better place.
That's fantastic. Let's hope everyone can find lots of love in the next year ahead. So thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chris. See you.
Thank you, Gaurav. Again, it's been great listening to your words, what your thoughts are on the world of UX. And I'm sure we're going to catch up soon about this and talk about all the things we just mentioned. And I hope that this episode has inspired you in some way. If you've enjoyed what you're listening to, please subscribe via whatever platform you're listening to and leave a review. It really helps podcasts grow. And if we've inspired you to think about UX design at Loughborough University, I've put a link to our 2 UX courses, both MA and MSc, in the show notes. So get on there, click, take a look, and see where we can take your future together. I've been Dr. Chris Parker. I'll see you next time.